The following is brought to you by GFL Ag. Next thing you know the next thing. Next is Now is a short podcast discussing agriculture's emerging next-gen tech and trends as they're happening in our industry. Next is Now, presented by GFL Ag. Listen where you get your podcasts today.
And we are joined right now here by Ian Boxall. He is president of APAS and, of course, farmer in Saskatchewan. Hey, Ian, how's it going?
Good, Sean. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. Y'all ready for spring?
Oh, we're getting there. I hope here in the Northeast we could use a little bit more snow to get some dugouts and stuff full. So I'm hoping we get a late March snow. But, yeah, for the most part, we're ready to go.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, hey, before we start putting seed in the ground, coming up next week on March 26th, we've got the Canada Grain Act Summit that is happening in Saskatchewan, and APAS is working with Saskatchewan Wheat Development Commission on this. What is this summit? What are we trying to accomplish?
So, I guess there's several objectives here we're trying to focus on. One would be, we want this summit to be producer focused. We want to ensure the focus on protecting the interests of producers through the Grain Act, through their policies and their regulations. I think we want to development and implement that the Grain Commission decisions are in line with the Act and the mandate that they're there to protect producers. I think maybe this summer, we maybe saw that go off the rails a little bit, and I think farmers were maybe a little bit concerned that the Grain Commission didn't have their best interests at mind. So we want to make sure that that's adhered to. And we want to make sure that there's, have a discussion about explore possibilities within the current, Grain Commission's framework, strengthen in-country presence, enhance export sales reporting, I think is important. That would be a big benefit to producers, and strengthen the producer payment. Have discussions on some of those things and what that looks like moving forward.
So why now? Like the Grain Act's been in review, it feels, for a very, very long time. We saw the What We Heard document. We've had the consult. So how is the messaging here different than what's already been said out there in the ether?
Well, and you're right. It's been a while. Like, it's been more than 5 years since Ag Canada sought input on the Grain Act, right? And I think our membership saw that. In December, we passed a resolution that they wanted to hold this summit in conjunction with other groups like Sask Wheat. And so I think it's about finding common ground, essential for building partnerships and driving innovation. I think we need to look at ways that we can, modernize the Act and modernize the CGC for the betterment of all producers. I think 5 years is that they've asked for this. You're right. We read the What We Heard report, but yet nothing's happened, right? We want to help. We want to ensure that we focus the discussion on aspects of the Grain Commission that can be acted upon, possibly without having to open up the Act.
Do you think holding this Canada Grain Act Summit now at the end of March, does this enable or spark the government to, I guess, move forward, or does it kind of bring it forward in the list of things that are important that need to be done from the federal standpoint? Or talk about that in terms of what the goals are.
I think first off, with what happened this summer and the changing of export standards discouraged some producers on the Grain Commission. I think with a new commissioner and a chief commissioner being announced here, with Doug Chorney's retirement from the Grain Commission, I think there's an opportunity here to maybe lay out some stuff prior to this appointment so that the new commissioner and the new group of commissioners have some direction from producers, which is who they're supposed to represent. I think that's important as to why it is now, why now is the time to do it. I also think maybe putting a little pressure, hearing from the government that they have the changes in the Act ready to go to the House, the legislation changes that they want, but yet nothing's happened with them. Maybe this is a little way that we could push it a little bit.
Have you invited the Federal Minister of Agriculture, Lawrence Macaulay, to the event?
We have invited everybody. We've invited 40 different organizations. We're invited. We expect to have between 80 and 100 in attendance next week at this thing from all different groups across the prairies. And so I assume there will be representation there from AFC. There will be representation there from the Saskatchewan government as well. So let's hope they hear what we have to say. Hope they understand the importance of it. I think the other part of this summit is also to inform, educate, talk about with producers. I think some producers maybe get going in their operations and they don't understand how important the act is and how important the CGC is to producers, and we want to ensure that we just make sure they understand how important and what the role they play in our export system and in all of that, right?
Yeah. For you personally, Ian, and you can speak with an APAS hat if you want to, or just the overall broader groups associated with the summit. But to you, what do you feel is one of the key issues under this umbrella that needs to stay or be fixed?
I think outward inspection. I think there is a diverse opinions out there amongst groups and out of producers. Canadian grains are sought after, right? We have been renowned for the wheat we grow and the job we do growing it and all of that. And some of that comes back to we need to ensure that the outward inspection stays the way it is. Is the funding of it correct? Maybe not. And these are discussions we need to have, right? What does it look like to modernize the outward inspection? What does the funding look like to the CGC? But the outward inspection, and to ensure that the quality of our product is what the world wants and what the world has come to expect from Canada, I feel is one of the most important issues.
So to provide some context here, this is, should there be some privatization of outward inspection? Is that the other option, or what are the options that are being debated out there that is you said is so diverse?
Well, I think some feel so. Some of the stats show and some of the reports show that third party inspections would be way cheaper than having the Grain Commission do it. But we also know that the Grain Commission gets a lot of its funding through the outward inspection. Right, and there's been complaints from the elevator companies about redundancy because they do it and this and that, and I feel that, and I think APAS's stance is that the CGC needs to continue to do the outward inspection. So if we look at changing the funding model, how outward inspection is billed or paid for, then we also need to look at how do we replace that money for the CGC for them to continue to do the work that they do. So these are discussions that I'm hoping we can have next week, that we will have next week on what that looks like and what is the best. Is third party best? Is it best staying in the CGC? How does that look, right? And if it does go third party, how do we fund the CGC? What role becomes of the CGC at that point? And I think these are all important things that we can talk about next week, in that summit and come to some consensus that's best for producers in Western Canada.
Do you feel there is any appetite or political will by the federal government to move on this Grain Act review prior to them having the next election, which could be as late as fall of 25? What have you been hearing?
I don't know. I'm discouraged, Sean, when I hear that when I go to meetings in Ottawa, and I've had meetings in Saskatchewan with federal ministers and bureaucrats that they know what we've said. They know what all the groups have asked for. They've read all that stuff. They put out the reports. They have the legislation ready to bring to the House, but they're just waiting. I guess there's always, and I get the sense that there will always be things more important than the Grain Act. That's kind of the sense I get from the government. And maybe if we have this summit, we have a good dialogue and we bring some constructive, recommendations forward, maybe it'll push their hand a little bit that now's the time.
Ian, thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really, really appreciate it. Good luck with the summit next week in Saskatchewan to talk about these important issues. And also, hey, good luck with spring, okay?
You betcha. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.